It's just a true story. They went out to jack a deer one night, which means shoot a deer out of season, and they went up to the Bartlett lot, which my family owned for some time, about 40 acres. And they got a team, and hooked it up, and a dog car essentially went up. Well, they got it, and it was doe, large doe. And they were coming back through town, and right down from the old farmhouse is a house owned by, later years by a guy called Hughes, but at that time it was owned by a guy called Charlie Randall. Well, Charlie had a big round face and he had big Coke bottle glasses. And so they were coming back down through, and Chester said to Claude, Charlie's kind of nosy, and he's going to notice that we have this deer in the back. What are we going to do? Well, Claude said, I have an idea. Let's prop her up between us on the buckboard. He doesn't see too well, and he'll think it's just a third person. So they put the deer up. People really do this thing. They put the deer up. They go by. Sure enough, the curtain parts, and there's a big round face, in the window. So Claude's a pretty smart guy. So he goes down the country store the next day, the Wayside, which is still there, and Charlie is in the store, and he kind of crabs right up to him, and he puts his face in his and says, "Who was that coming down with you last night?" And Claude thought a second. He said, "Oh, just a local girl." And Charlie said, "Kind of ugly, ain't she?" So that's how I spent about 10 years. My advice for anyone is take 25 recipes and make them so many times you don't need to learn the recipes anymore. And then when you get that down, you do a roast, and you do a braise, and you do if you make the recipes, then you sort of get what people cook, and how we all eat has changed dramatically. But how you cook at home hasn't changed nearly as much as how much restaurant food has changed. And so we do surveys all the time. We ask you what you want us to cook. We don't take advertising, so if we publish recipes you don't want, we're out of business. So I know what you want. First of all, you're all liars. I just want you. And I say that kindly, because I am too. But you all say, if I ask you, I love fish, I love vegetables, chocolate, beef, and pork. So don't tell me you want vegetarian lasagna, because you really want the meat in it. I got a lot of cheese. The all-time stupidest thing they ever do. And first of all, you substitute ingredients, because you never have the right ingredients. And you go like, well, I have canned crushed tomatoes and I have canned diced tomatoes, or I have natural cocoa, I don't have Dutch processed cocoa, etc. Well, it turns out in some recipes that's like the kiss of death. It's Dutch processes a different pH, whatever. It was a recipe for chicken. And this gentleman, we asked him, would you make recipe? No, hated the recipe. It's the worst recipe ever made. And then there's a comment section, which you can fill out and send back to us by email. And he said, since I didn't have any chicken cut off, I use shrimp. I put on my favorite hiking boots. I grabbed the pork one into a plastic bag and placed it on the kitchen floor. Of course. Wouldn't you? This is Montana. Then I jumped up and down on it, slipping off once or twice, damn near breaking my ankle. Not even a half-inch there. Still wrapped in a plastic bag. Now she gets really creative. I took the pork line out to the garage. And placed it on the rear tire of my pickup truck. It gets worse. I got behind the wheel, put the truck in reverse, and received it back over. Well, as the tire made contact with the roast, I can only assume that some air built up in the bag. Because the next thing I knew, it exploded. I sent the wine flying under a minivan, which was parked in the I couldn't reach it. I grabbed my favorite hiking stick, the one sporting a sharp metal point, and poked the roast and carefully eased it out from under the can. And this is like the final thing. When I stood up, standing in the garage door was the UPS man, looking very good. How do you explain why you're standing in the garage wearing hiking boots and nightgown, holding a pork loin impaled on the end of the wall? So, first thing in the morning, 8:15, butter, big schmear of butter and bread. Which is the Danish butter, which is Land O'Lakes, which is high fat, which is low fat. Took a bite and realized that somebody thought it was very funny that it was a thick wedge layer of chili paste hidden between the butter and bread. Okay, well, I don't like hot foods too much, so that was kind of a surprise. And then I always have a large glass of water to clear my palate. So I drank a third of it and realized, of course, that it wasn't water. It was, of course, gin. So in Europe, they actually will go and take product off the shelf, and they will taste it, and they will check the acidity level, and they have to meet certain requirements. If it doesn't, it's off the shelf, it's gone. In the United States, I don't know if you know this, it's about to change. Nobody checks. If you say extra virgin olive oil, it can be peanut oil. It can be motor oil. Nobody, the federal government, nobody checks it, and there are no taste tests done. In fact, it can be anything you want it to be. So that's the University of Davis in California, so people are going to try to change that. But
question, what was your inspiration for the book, since Fanny Farmer was not a very good cook and didn't have a very good cookbook?
Well, because I was interested in, one of my favorite books is American Cookery by James Beard in 1973, because he's really an anthropologist, and he goes, a sociologist, and goes back and sort of explains American cooking. I'm fascinated with American cooking because the book tells the story of Boston in the 1800s, and it sort of tells you where our food came from and why, and I'm just fascinated by that process to figure out how we got where we are today. And the story of Fanny's Last Supper really is the story of a period where up until 1850, everything was grown locally, and there were no convenience foods. By 1900, those 50 years, there was more change in American culture than has existed at any time in its history. And we went through a period of, as I said, everything natural to, they would put coal dust in coffee, and in ground bricks, and all those sorts of other stuff. And they would use food coloring, made with arsenic, hard candies for kids, And so by the time 1900 came around, we'd gone from using a thickener that was made from the swim bladders of fish. That's what we used in 1820. And people do what I've done for years, which is, you're making the recipe and you forgot to take the cream cheese out of the refrigerator for 2 hours, and now you're trying to whip it and it doesn't work. So you end up with a bad cheesecake. It's all about the prep. Everything's about the prep. And once you get that down, anyway, thank you very much.